just in my head.
Sports wearables seem to be all the rage at the moment. We have bone conduction headphones, air conduction headphones, open ear headphones, and guess what? I'm back with another review of one of those style products. This time it's one from the soundpeats stable, released through their sub-brand TRUEFREE, the 01. And this style of earbud has become really popular, in particular during 2023, for many reasons. They're widely recognised as being more comfortable, especially for prolonged use rather than having a silicone tip stuck in your ear. And when you're out on the roads, whether it's running or cycling, they're handy in giving you situational awareness without the need to fumble around and turn on transparency mode. TRUEFREE have incorporated 16.2mm dynamic drivers. They're using the WUQI 7033 chipset, which is Bluetooth 5.3 enabled. Most importantly for this kind of earbud, they're giving you comfort and stability when you're using them for outdoor activities, and there's dual mics to improve the quality of your voice calls. You're also getting a mammoth 45 hours battery life with the case, with 10 hours single use. The 01 has a few features that actually look a little bit out of place on a sports bud. You've got LDAC support, which I don't think we're really getting the benefit of that. You've got multipoint connectivity, which I suppose is a nice to have, but given the use cases are mostly going to be exercise, that could be more of an annoyance than anything else. And you've got gaming mode as well. This style doesn't really lend itself to an immersive experience, so I suspect that's not something that we're going to make a great deal of use of either. And to be fair to TRUEFREE, whilst they have included all those features, they don't mention them on the front of the box. The focus is on the 16.2mm dynamic drivers, the 45-hour playtime with the case, and the dual mic ENC. If you watched my review of the TRUEFREE T3 recently, you'll acknowledge it's quite a basic unboxing experience. The manuals are classic soundpeats. They're in 7 different languages, and they make use of diagrams to good effect when they're trying to explain things like what the control scheme is and what the LEDs on the case mean. The 01 aren't full of accessories. You get an A to C charge cable, and that's really about it, and that's pretty much all you need to get going. And let's not try and dress it up any other way. The charge case for the 01 is an absolute monster. The case is a grey plastic affair with a lip at the front and a reasonable sized hinge and USB-C charge socket on the back, with the TRUEFREE logo displayed on the front, and measuring rather unorthodox dimensions of just over 9 centimeters wide, 7 centimeters deep, and over 3 centimeters high, weighing over 100 grams. Do not expect to be taking this out for a jog in your trouser pockets. The case does have some quite sharp edges, so it does give you the impression that there was a little bit of expense spared on the materials. Flip open the case, you'll notice the hinge has a fairly rigid stop at 90 degrees, although give it a little shake and it snaps shut quite easily. And notice the 3 LEDs on the front. This means that the case has 60% of its 45-hour full charge battery remaining. 2 LEDs lit means you're at 59 to 30%, and 1 means less than 30. So the shape of the TRUEFREE 01 is pretty much identical, as we said, to the Dance. You've got a bean-shaped control unit here with the TRUEFREE logo on, and a small LED which is glowing white here. It's visible but not super bright, and it switches itself off when you've got audio playing. And when they're in pairing mode, that LED will flash blue and red. But flip them around and you see the more thoughtful side of the design. Because whilst the outward facing side is shiny, presumably to get rid of residue as quickly as possible, the flip side is matte, and it's a softer finish on the bits that make direct contact with your skin. The outlay for the driver is quite targeted as well, so it's designed to get that sound into your ear canal as efficiently as possible. They weigh under 10 grams, so that's quite lightweight for an open earbud, and there's quite a bit of give in the ear hooks. For me, I wasn't overly keen of the edge of the driver resting against my tragus. I'm really fussy like this, and probably nobody else will notice. However, I did welcome the ability to adjust them by sort of tweaking the wire there, and it does stay in place once you make that adjustment. So that is a really handy feature, and it means that regardless of the size or shape of your ear, you're probably going to be able to make those micro adjustments to ensure that the comfort is right for you. The touch controls are also located on the control unit, and this is one area where I felt that they fall a little bit short compared to their more expensive competition, which tend to have either a combination of tactile and touch controls or pretty much all tactile buttons. Tactile buttons aren't necessarily the be all and end all, but I found that these touch controls were far more responsive when they weren't on the ear than when they are on the ear. I'd double tap and it would accidentally trigger volume changes. I'd triple tap and it still wouldn't do anything. It's counterintuitive, actually, touch controls while you're out running or cycling, because firstly, you've got to kind of fumble around to get the bud in the first place. And secondly, you've got stuff like sweat, moisture, all of those things that can get in the way of the touch control's efficacy to contend with as well. The 01 are only certified IPX4, and that may or may not be a problem for you depending on your use case. IPX4 means that it will be able to withstand a splash of rain, so if you're just using them for going out for jogs or the daily commute, something like that, it's probably going to be fine. However, if you go on long runs, half marathons or marathons, go on long bike rides where you're exposed to the elements for long periods of time, or you're into extreme sports, then these probably aren't going to be the buds for you, because whilst they probably will be able to withstand some of that moisture okay and still be able to work, you're not going to have that peace of mind that you would get with a bud which has got a higher IP rating. And how do they wear? Well, that lightweight design makes them extremely comfortable. They also have great stability, passing the shake test quite easily. That stability is really useful in the gym if you're into HIIT or CrossFit, activities that are quite high octane. There's no issues with them staying on your ears. They're also much better for bench and floor work than your traditional kind of neckband sports earbuds, because you don't have to worry about that band pressing down against the floor or the bench and then moving the earpieces away from your ear. Other use cases including running, road running for example. I took them out on a couple of 5k runs and didn't have any issues whatsoever with the stability. Situational awareness is an added bonus. Also, when you're out on the bike, similar sort of thing, and they wear pretty well underneath a helmet. So onto the audio, and the 01, like most designs of this ilk, is a little bit light on the lower frequencies. They graph fairly flat along the mid-range up until you get to the upper mids, where you've got a peak between 2 and 3k and a little bump at 4k to give a little edginess to percussion. You've also got a tail off at 8k, which is admittedly a little early even by open ear standards, but you can kind of see what they were trying to do when you're looking at the graph, balancing, accentuating vocal delivery, whilst at the same time trying to minimize sibilance as much as possible. And for the most part, it works. You've got a bright sounding audio experience, which is pretty clear on the vocals, but it lacks a bit of power and energy, especially on pop and techno, genres like that, where drums are just lacking that little bit of oomph, especially on the kick. The bass is more something that you can hear than feel. There's a bit of weight by open ear standards, but don't expect a throbbing bass line that you can feel pulsating through you or anything like that. The staging is quite wide and open though, and the sound leakage isn't too bad either. I always feel a little bad about graphing earbuds of this kind, because their graphs really shouldn't be read in the same way as you're reading an IEM or TWS. Priority here really is decent clarity, especially on vocals and instruments, some bass without any distortion, a little width to the soundstage, and the ability to still hear your music in noisy environments without fatigue. And I think TRUEFREE do get a decent balance here. It isn't quite as organic sounding as something like the soundpeats Run Free, but it avoids the quite nasty distortion that you get on the Run Free Lite. My only real issue here is the volume, which can be a little quiet if the scene gets particularly noisy. I tested them out on a main road nearby an airport, and it became very difficult to hear what I was listening to. And while I've been testing them out and about, I've had them on 100% pretty much all of the time, so that automatically is going to be eating into your expected battery life. You can mitigate this a little bit by switching LDAC off, but there's no easy way to do that other than going into your phone menu, and that can be a little bit of a faff if you're having to do that every time you take the earbuds out of the case. I've reviewed enough of these open ear and air conduction headphones that I kind of know what to expect, and the 01 pretty much fit the bill here with a non-fatiguing sound that is a comfortable listen, and it will translate well through to most music styles, especially podcasts. So now let's have a look at the call quality, and we'll take you through a few different scenarios. Firstly, we're testing the TRUEFREE 01 in absolute silence. What we're looking for here is the clarity, the weight and the tone of your voice, where the earbuds aren't having to compensate and try and reduce those environmental sounds around you. And this time we're testing the TRUEFREE O1. Forgot what the model number was then. TRUEFREE Sports Buds in a busy indoor environment. We're in a coffee shop, so let's say you're using these earbuds and you're out and about and need to make or take an important call. When you've got the sounds of people talking around you, the sounds of the baristas making a coffee and other environmental sounds trying to infiltrate your call, well, this is what you're going to sound like on those calls. So we're testing the TRUEFREE O1 open ear air conduction headphones. In terms of their call quality, this is what they're going to sound like when you're making or taking a call when you're out and about in an outdoor environment. This is what the TRUEFREE O1 sound like when you're on the beach. Maybe you're out for exercise or just sunbathing, whatever it is, and you need to make or take an important call. You've got the waves crashing behind you, you've got people shouting, playing on the beach, you've got sound of stones, etc. This is what your voice is going to sound like. In terms of other features, connectivity is rock solid. I didn't get any issues there. Multipoint also gives you the ability to connect two simultaneous devices. It's a bit of a faff because you have to disconnect the primary device and then connect it to the secondary device and then reconnect it to the primary device. And it's a couple of seconds from pressing pause on the primary until the secondary starts playing. So that's pretty good. But of course, as I mentioned previously, there's no app support, so you can't see the connected devices like you could, which I mentioned in the review of the Halo product recently, where that was a really nice addition. So I'm hoping this is something maybe TRUEFREE can add in the future. And one of the drawbacks of having no app support is losing the ability to EQ the buds. If you're on Android, of course, you have Wavelet and you can use Squiggling to EQ them to suit your own custom requirements. But remember, on iOS, you don't have that option. You're kind of stuck with the default sound, although that isn't necessarily too much of a bad thing. There's a dedicated gaming mode, and this does improve latency a little bit, although you're close to lip sync on YouTube videos, and I think that realistically is all you're going to be using them for. It doesn't have the immersive experience of an IEM, so that kind of rules it out for serious gamers. Battery life on this model is pretty good, certainly by TWS standards, but if you compare it to some of the top performing premium open earbuds, it does fall quite a way short. They advertise 10 hours, and on a single charge it is possible to get around 9 provided you switch LDAC off. It's a little bit of a faff, but if you don't, be prepared to lose 20 to 25% of your battery as a result. I got upwards of 12 hours on models like the Halo Free Buds, the Ola Dance and the One Audio Open Rock S, so they're a bit behind those models on paper, but with the case you're getting an additional 3.5 extra charges. That is fantastic, one of the leaders in their field in this respect. And whilst the case is a bit bulky, if you're out for hikes, camping for the weekend for example, you don't have to worry about getting power to the case. That 30 to 36 hours is more than enough to last you the weekend and probably beyond. The only real disappointment is that the buds don't support quick charge. I see that fairly commonplace across most of the open ear designs these days, so it's a little bit disappointing that that wasn't included. And a full charge is going to take you 2 hours, but that does reset you to the maximum battery life of 35 hours or thereabouts. So to summarize, the TRUEFREE O1 are a very cost-effective alternative to the Ola Dance that look and feel quite similar, and the performance isn't really that far off when you consider that they're priced at 2 to 3 times the price of the O1. Granted, you're not getting the same powerful dynamic sound. The bass falls some way short of the likes of One Audio's Open Rock Pro and the Shock's Open Fit, but that price difference is worth bearing in mind, and at the very least you're getting a clear audio delivery that translates reasonably well to most music styles. They're super comfy, perform okay on calls, and have adequate battery life that extends to great with the case. Do take the IP rating into consideration though, considering your use cases. Overall though, it's a decent release. It offers a great low cost alternative to something like the Ola Dance. It may not have all the bells and whistles, and it may have a load that you probably will never use, but in terms of an introduction into open ear technology, I think it's a pretty good option. Like the video if you found it useful, and do subscribe to help support the channel. For now, it's ReganCipher signing off.